of know each other. It's Navi?
Navi.
Jürgen?
Jürgen, yes.
Claudia?
Cliff. Marty.
Natalia.
Cam.
Tibor. Ross.
Carl.
Michael. Marty too.
Tyson.
Jacinta.
Shai. Melissa?
Chris.
Adrian.
Cass.
Mitra?
Christine.
And Paul. I'll get yourself. Thank you, darling.
Well done, my darlings.
Well, for the those of you here, what we talk about in point 2 is what they call in the Hindu scriptures Advaita, or non-duality. Non-duality translated means one without a second, not two. Absolute. Perfection. So I can't teach you anything, and I can't tell you anything. All I can do is point toward and ask you to look to where we're pointing to and see for yourself, because that's what needs to happen. It's nothing that anybody can ever give you, nothing that you can ever get. Because if it's non-duality, one without a second, everything is that. And that's the great mantra, I am that. You are that, this is that, everything is that. We all know that because we say that's a chair, that's the carpet, that's the tree, that's the flower, that's the bird, that's everything is that which we discriminate with the word. We put the words on, the label. And then we ask you to look into the word and see that the word is not the real, it's not the thing. Try and drink the word water. Try and swim in it or drown in it. Take the word fire, try and cook with it or burn yourself with it. Take the word I or me. And when you investigate that, you'll see that's not what you really are. You're not the person. You're not the individual or separate entity that you believe yourself to be. Because, as I say, it's one without a second, not two. So everything is already that. And so what you are seeking is what you already are. And recognise that the search is the problem. Because when you're seeking something, you believe that something you're going to get. But you can't get what you already are. All that needs to happen is to recognise, recognise it. They call it a cognising emptiness in Buddha. And the Buddha made the statement a couple of thousand years ago. He said, emptiness is form. And the forms can be nothing other than the emptiness. So what he's talking about, you and I and everything, other pattern and manifestation, are all forms, all pattern shapes and forms, all emptiness. And in the scriptures they'll tell you that also. They'll say the basic space of awareness. We hear that term, what do we think? Don't realise what they're saying there. That the base of everything is that emptiness, a cognising emptiness. Emptiness is form, and a form is nothing but the emptiness. So have a look at that. Can you get out of space right now? Can anybody think that they are not in space? But everything in this room and outside the room is in space. Space is no thing. Can you find a beginning to space? You can't look into it, you can't find a beginning anywhere to it. Does it have any ending? Does it have any shape or any form? It appears to have some, but it hasn't. So everything is the content of space. There is nothing you can postulate or think of that could be outside of space. What would it be in? It must be in space. Space is empty, but there is a cognising there of that emptiness, a knowing of that emptiness. So that's what we need to look at. we've taken on this idea that we are a person, a separate entity, an individual. Where does that word person come from? Just like the words, say you can't drink the word water, you can't burn yourself with the word fire. So what's this word I or me that we take to believe is so? Maybe we're not this person. When you look into that, you'll see the word persons comes from the ancient Latin language meaning persona, the mask. So we've got this conceptual image or mask that we believe we are and are functioning from that mask or conceptual image. Investigate, have a look. Are you this body? Are you this mind? Well, everybody says my body, my mind. You say my coat, my car, my house. You know you're not the coat. You know you're not the car or the house. Maybe you're not the body either. And when you look into it, you'll see that that's so. What's this body made up of? You're made up of, see, it's made up of elements. Air, earth, fire, water, space. Just like the elements around you. Separate yourself from the air. See how long you'd last. Take the water out of your body. Your body's 60% water, you wouldn't last long. Take the body temperature of the fire. You'll soon get hypothermia and die. Get off the earth. Get out of space. When you investigate, you see you're not separate from those elements. All those elements can be broken down into subatomic particles, into pure energy. So this body really is only a vibrating pattern of energy. And it's transient. It's constantly vibrating, constantly changing. You haven't got the same body you walked into this room with. There are thousands of cells dying in it right now and being replaced. And each cell knows what to do. A skin cell won't replace a heart cell. A brain cell won't replace a liver cell. Each cell is suffused with that innate intelligence, that life essence of life, that pattern shapes and forms this pattern we call the body. Well, have a look at it. Where did you begin? You'll say, I began at birth. But can any one of you remember your birth? You all say, a lot of people say they can remember the birth. But nobody can remember their birth because you didn't have any words as your birth. So how could you remember? How could you say I was born? And you didn't learn words till you were a couple of years old. Your parents fussing around you, speaking, and the capacity of reasoning developed in that little embryo, that little fetus and that little baby. And you learnt words. And we've learnt words and added words ever since and taking the word to be the real. But the word's not the thing. Just labels, images. So how did you come about, if you look at it? You believe you were born, you believe this entity. Where did you begin? Well, we go back to that father and mother, your father and your mother. You seemingly came from that, your mother. That animating life essence in your father enabled a little, through the food he's eaten and the prana and everything else that's functioning going on, formed a little microscopic particle called a sperm to form. That sperm was suffused with intelligence, with life. It knew what to do. And the same with your mother. That animating life essence in your mother enabled in that pattern another microscopic particle called an egg or an ovum to form. That egg was suffused with intelligence. It attached itself to the wall of the uterus. And the sperm, being suffused with intelligence, swam to the ovum and penetrated the ovum, implying there was life and intelligence in it. When those two came together, that cell doubled and redoubled and formed the little embryo, the little fetus, which is what you are today. What were you doing about it then? Nothing. It was all happening naturally, effortlessly and spontaneously just the same as it is right now. Did you think about that breath you just took? Or did you think about expanding and contracting your heart? All these things are going on, they're happening by itself. But we've taken the belief that we are this person. And for the first couple of years of your life, you didn't have any words. We didn't learn words. We were around about 2.5. Some of you might have been sooner, some of it later. All depends on the life as their intelligence in the pattern that's expressing. And when the parents fussing around you tell you your little Johnny or your little Betty or Billy, whatever your name is, and what do you say? Well, I am little Johnny, or I am little Betty. So realizing that sense of presence, that I amness, that is what it is. The sense of presence which expresses through the mind as the thought I am. So it's just a natural expression. We didn't know it doesn't need any words on it to be. So you are that being. And you are knowing that being. And you are loving to be. And that's what Advaita is, Sat Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. The other two factors, Nama Rupa, name and form. Well, anybody who's not existing right now? You'll say, no, I'm existing. Anyone who's not conscious or unaware right now? And you know for certain, no, I'm not unaware, I'm conscious. Anyone who's not happy to be? Well, nobody wants to be dead right now, no matter what problems are going on. You still want to live, if you can. So, recognise you are already that. And the Nama Rupa, the concepts we've got about the body, mind, Nama is the body and Rupa is the form, the mind. Nama Rupa, they tell you clearly, is Maya. It's illusion. The pattern, shapes and forms are all illusion. And we were pointed out before, it's a cognizing emptiness. Emptiness is the base, the basic space of phenomena. That's what they call it. What is the base? Something which everything comes from. Well, everything is in that basic space. You can't postulate or think of anything that to be outside of space. What would it be in? So that's what needs to be recognised, that I am that spaceless, timeless, bodiless, mindless, pure intelligence energy, the activity of knowing. That's what intelligence energy is. Intelligence is knowing. You're knowing this, knowing that, reasoning. Energy is a vibration. The activity of knowing is a vibrating pattern of energy, which patterns vibrate pattern shapes and forms into words, concepts, ideas. And the word is not the real. And I tell you, in Buddhism, the great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. It's that awareness without any concepts. And the Buddha told you a couple of thousand years ago, he says emptiness is form. So all these forms, you and I are forms, the room's the form, the carpet, the trees, the flowers are all forms. Emptiness is form, and he says the form can be nothing other than the emptiness. They called it a phenomenal manifestation. The definition of phenomenon, that's which appears to be. So all this pattern, shapes and forms are appearance only, but it's still the one essence that pattern, shapes and forms in all this variety and all this diversity. And you are that. And that is the great mantra. I am that. And you know that. This is what I am. So that's what we need to look at and recognise and see that this body, mind, is a conceptual image. So, seeing the body is nothing but a vibrating pattern of energy, and the mind is the same, and that is an intelligence energy, what was born. That sense of presence needs something to express through. In its unicity, it can't do anything. It is perfect. And they also call it is absolute. Now, nothing can be added to be perfect. It wouldn't be perfect. Nothing can be taken away from it. Nothing can be added to absolute. Nothing can be taken away from it. It wouldn't be absolute. So if you recognise that you are the absolute, what would you know? Can anybody be superior to you if you are absolute? And everything else is absolute and it's only the one? There is nothing that can be superior to you. Can anybody be inferior to you? So you can't put he's better than I am, or I'm better than what he is, or any of that without the concept. So nothing superior, nothing inferior, and what would you want from anybody else? Now again, there's wars going on. People want to take this from somebody else, or want to protect it from somebody else. All these wars going on in the different countries and patterns, and personally there's all these arguments, shapes and forms, jealousy, envy, unhappiness, depression, guilt, shame, remorse, all the psychological suffering is going on also. All because we're relating to this believed entity. So all our problems of relationship is relative too. And there's no duality in non-duality. There's no relationship. It's all the one essence. It has to be recognised, or cognised and seen through, question it and have a look and see that you cannot possibly be separate and apart from anything, because it all can be traced back to the great perfection which is non-conceptual awareness. No one is unaware right now. If you were unaware, the life would be out of that body. The awareness is there first, and awareness is prior to mind, because that awareness was there for the first couple of years of life before you learnt words or thoughts. What is this mind? We say we are this mind. Show me a thing called mind if you can. You realise you can't show me anything at all that you can say is mind apart from thought. So what mind is thought or thinking. And if you look at that, what's wrong with right now if you don't think about it? You can't say it's good, bad, pleasant or painful without a thought. But it's not the end of you without a thought. You go to sleep at night, what do? You gladly give up the mind. You gladly go to sleep. That's not the end of you. So you start to, though we believe it is when we sleep out of it, but it's not. So there's no beginning and no end. But it needs patterns, shapes and forms to express through. In its absoluteness, in its unicity, you can't say anything about it. So patterns, shapes and forms, things to express through, as it's formed this body. And we're expressing and experiencing through that. If you investigate that, you'll see there's nothing there at all. Ask yourself, what's your next thought going to be? Can you tell me? You can't. You don't know what your next thought's going to be. But the thought comes up, I think. And as soon as that thought, I think, comes up, what have you done? You formed a concept, a thinker. You believe that I think. But the thinking was there beforehand. I think this thought. And the thought you think has become the subject. The object, I should say. The thought I think is the thinker, subject, and the thought we're thinking is the object. So it's divided into subject-object. And thinking is always doing that. As Shakespeare told you 400 years ago. He says there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. When you look into that and see how you're thinking, you'll see you're thinking past, future, pleasant, painful, happy, sad, loving, hating, high, low, far, near. It's always dividing into the opposite. But instead of seeing it's two ends of the one stick, two sides of the one coin, it's not divided at all. We're divided. And in that division, that sense of separation, we cause all our problems. For it's only me that can be unhappy. Only me that can be fearful. Only me that can be anxious or depressed. Me is the cause of all my psychological suffering. And the fear, the anger, the jealousy, the envy, the hatred, all those are effects of the cause. Now, cause and effect, what's that? Cause and effect is what they call karma. Cause and effect. What happens if I ask the question, can there be an effect without a cause? Well, if I'm not relating to the cause, me, where can the effect lodge? It can't land anywhere. So you can be free of all this psychological suffering and all the problems it causes and recognise what you're relating to. You're relating to this conceptual image, this pattern we believe we are, and that becomes the problem. That becomes the cause. If I see that the cause is a fiction, and there can't be an effect without the cause, well, where are these things going to lodge? Who's to be jealous? Who's to be envious? Who's to be unhappy without relating to the me, the believed in me, or conceptual image? How does that work? We'll have a look and see. Something comes up and you like it. And the good things we want to keep there. We don't want the good things to go. We want to keep them there. So, trying to keep it then, realise it's going to go, what do? We resist it from going. Try to keep it there, fixate on it, keep it there. Resistance is conflict. If you are resisting anything, you're in conflict with it. And conflict makes you fearful, anxious, depressed, unhappy, anxious, uneasy. Another word for uneasiness is disease. So there is resistance, conflict and disease going on us all the time. The other way around, something comes up that I like it. That I don't like, I should say. I'm doing the things that I don't like. Oh, I shouldn't be thinking this, I'm bad, I'm a sinner, I shouldn't think that, that's no good. What do? I resist that. Conflict again, trying to escape from it. So that's what's happening in all life. Resistance, conflict and disease. Now what happens if I see and recognise that and leave everything as it is without resistance, and seeing when I put that resistance on it, I've separated. There's me resisting that. But recognise the resistance and the conflict, it's still only expressions of that one essence. It's not two. Two sides to the one coin. Two ends of the one stick. There's no one-ended stick. There's no one-sided coin. It's all the one essence that patterns, shapes, forms and experiences everything. Like you've got a bangle, bracelet and earrings made of gold. Take that bracelet, bangle and earrings, right? What have you got? You've got gold. Instead of putting the labels on which separate and divide them. So we start to recognise that the base of everything is the one. And there's nothing separate about any of it. Have a look at in nature. That's where you get a good idea or description of it. In nature, you'll realise the Earth's rolling around the sun. This part of the Earth is facing the sun. What is it? It's light, daylight. The other part of the Earth, the other side of the Earth, is facing away from the sun. What's there? Darkness. Does the Earth know anything about daylight and dark? It doesn't. Does the sun know anything about daylight and day? It doesn't. But you see, when it's darkness, it doesn't fight with it. It is a knowing that it will change by itself. So the Earth rolls around, the daylight gets further away from the sun, the daylight will recede and the darkness will form. But they're not divided. The same with the winter, summer, seasons, tides, and all the rest of it. They're not divided. One takes over and the other seemingly disappears. Have a look at the sun. The sun shines of itself. And in that self-shining, that radiance, that heat, what does it do? It evaporates water. You go outside on a cloudy day, would you say the sun's not in the sky? Of course you wouldn't, because you've investigated and know it's not so. But it seems to be so. Go outside on a cloudy day, the sun's seemingly obscured. But you recognise that the sun's not obscured. The sun will keep radiating and might cause the wind, it will blow the cloud away or bring it down as rain. When it brings it down, condenses and brings it down as rain, well, instead of that condensation and cloudiness, it's now become something more solid, rain. And that rain will flow back into the ocean or wherever it was sucked up from with the radiance of the sun. And the same thing will repeat itself over and over. So it's always the one essence that's pattern, shapes and forms, experiences everything. And you are that essence. So you might understand when Christ says, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the light, or the light. He wasn't talking about himself. He was talking about that sense of presence that expresses through the mind as the thought I am. That sense of presence. And when you investigate that, you'll see it's so. You are, it's that life. And Nisargadatta will tell you there's only life. There is nobody who lives a life. Life lives on life, and out of life, more life comes. And you know that. It's that life essence that pattern, shaped and formed, pattern, shaped and formed your father and your mother, which was the life, and that life that came from them was the same life. The same life that's in everything. It patterns in all the different diversity of patterns, shapes and forms to express through. And that's why you get all the different shapes and forms in this manifestation. But it's the one life that's expressing and experiencing through it all. And I and you and everything else is that. Recognise that. And the Dad told you that when he said that cognising emptiness, it's the emptiness that does the cognising or knowing. I might have said this before, I don't know, I might be repeating myself. It says that emptiness is form. So all this manifestation is that emptiness which is vibrating into different patterns, shapes and forms. And he says the form can be nothing other than the emptiness. So So whether you believe it or not, if you start from the fact that you are that absolute, you are that pure being, you'll soon see through it, because the other saying is the false cannot stand up to investigation. And that's true. When you look into something and investigate it thoroughly, if it's not true, you'll soon find out. When you look into the body mind the same way, you'll see if it's true or not. You'll recognise the false. And if it's false, see the false is false, what have you done? You're left with truth. And what do they say? Know the truth. And the truth will set you free. It's not the concepts or ideas or reckon it. It's knowing the truth. Recognise that I am that essence, that sense of presence. These knowing that. Being, knowing, and loving to be. The absolute being. You've always been that, always will be. And that's where the freedom, peace and joy is. We go looking for it in the mind. But they tell you, and they tell you the truth, you'll never ever find the answer in the mind. Because it's prior to thought. And I said, so pause the thought and see what happens then. And you'll realise thought has stopped, you don't disappear, the breathing hasn't stopped, the heart beating, the living is still there, but thought has stopped for a while. So it's prior to the thought. And they'll never find the answer to the mind. They tell you that. They call it the peace that passes all understanding. Why would they call it that? Purely and simply because you can't grasp it with the concept, with the mind, you can't understand it with the word, but the understanding or knowing will be there. Without the thought, without the word, I haven't stopped breathing, my heart hasn't stopped beating, I still am that pure intelligence entity, the one without a second. And in that, the chatter that goes on when we're in these concepts all the time, creating stories and believing the story to be true, the stories drop away. And then what is there in reality can reveal itself, and it does. It comes up of itself. As Nisargadatta says again, realise you are dreaming a dream you call the world. Stop looking for ways out. He says the dream's not your concern. Your concern is you love one part of the dream and not the other. He says love all of it or none of it. Don't divide it. Love all of it or none of it. And the rest will be done for you. He's pointing out that that life essence that you are knows what is necessary and knows what to do. So it's dreaming, a dream you call the world. So when I stop looking for ways out and recognise that, it reveals itself. There's something else I was going to say, but it slipped my mind, and the age is getting on here, and I can't lose sight of things for a while, and it doesn't matter. And that's the matter. See, that's two different words. We see spirit and matter. We think they're separate. But spirit is essence, like the essence of a good perfume in the body. The perfume is not the essence, it's not the fluid itself, it's the essence of it. Well, the essence that you are is spirit. And when it becomes word, it becomes material. Just like the water becomes ice, becomes solid. And spirit becomes matter. And we divided them again, spirit and matter. And when we lock it into the matter, we're in trouble. And you know that too. When something comes up and you're not really concerned with it, you say it doesn't matter. And when you say it doesn't matter, have you concerned with it? No, of course you're not. Well, the other one is something will do something and you say, that you think they think affects you, and they'll ask you, can I do this? And you say, I don't mind. If you don't mind, you haven't put it into concepts. So you see, it's as simple as that and as easy as that. But we don't recognise it in its true nature. We take it to be as we've to believe to be. It's separate. When we learn words, we learn separation. It tells in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. That's all that God is a Word. All things were made by Him, by the Word. Isn't that the correct? Everything you say, everything you do is with the words. And there was nothing made that was made without the Word. So there you are. So that's what we're pointing to. And that's enough from this. The cat can take on. I think the point is that each and every one of you know it. Some of you mightn't have heard it before, might resonate with it, and it shows you that you're not happy with all the so-called, a lot of the religious traditions have been corrupted and contaminated by people who think you've got to worship this and worship that. So I say, recognise the Word is not the thing, and settle down, hear it, and it resonates with you, or you know something, tell us about it, because you might express it in some way different to what I do, and it might be something that somebody will hear and utilise. But that's how it gets around, through what's expressed in the Word. And there's power in the Word, in the energy. The energy in this room was brought in by each and every one of you. It's not the same energy that was here when this room was empty. So each and every one added to it. And there's a great power in this room if it's utilised. And whichever way you're taking it from, you're taking it from the idea of a person, you can get into the conflict that'll create and argue and fight. Or you can settle back into it and let it express it better. And there'll be a sense of warmth, of joyousness, and a love in that, allowing it to be. So away you go.
Okay, I can't tell how many people we have with us watching because it's just Facebook is jumping up and down. But we have a lot of good morning messages and welcome to the whole group messages from people who are with us. And we have a good input from Gilbert. He says, apparently the investment of belief in me has to resist what is being pointed out, or it falls apart. Is it true? Is it just another story of me? Did the me ever really happen? And Yelena says, the prior beliefs just fall away. No energy invested in them. What used to make sense doesn't exist anymore. Amazing.
Yeah, that says the belief. Have a look at that word belief. The definition of belief is the unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason. Acceptance of an alleged fact without positive knowledge or proof. Put your belief to that test and see if they'll stand up.
Yes, so now we invite everyone to comment, open up. Bob says, tell us what you know. Not necessarily a belief system that you subscribe to, but what you really know without question, deeply in your heart, because everyone knows that they are. Everyone knows they exist. And this is something that there is no separation in. That sense of existence expresses through us equally. There is no one who is superior or inferior to Bob with that knowing of existence. There would be other things that you may know that he doesn't know, and there would be things that he knows that you don't know, but this is all concepts. This is all stories. We really, that where the no separation exists is in the direct experience of being And resting back into that direct experience of being, now natural expression comes up. And then we are on the same page. Because everyone, even a little baby, even prior to language, the awareness of presence, awareness of existence is there. And it is so largely underestimated and ignored because the mind is such an entertaining tool. It gives us so much thrill and joy, imagination, memories, all of it is thrilling. But if we put the heart into the mind and the stories, there is a backfire, there is a suffering caused by the assumed identity that everything is referred to and related to. But if the heart rests back in that being, now the stories can still be totally loved and appreciated. They are still entertaining. But the suffering is absent because there is no me created that takes credit for what's happening and takes blame for what is, according to some social conditioning, wrong or painful. So, anyone would like to start?
It's quite clear that it all starts the moment we start thinking, we start talking. When I was a little boy, I remember a certain time between when I could think and when I couldn't think. A little time, and I used to say, "What am I behind everything?" And I used to see a little blue spark, and I used to think, "Wow." But there was a time when I used to think, "What am I? What am I?" And as soon as we start to learn how to think, and we start to learn how to speak, and we learn a name for every single thing that we see, that's where it starts. The problem starts, and the stories begin. And so I guess that's why they say, you go back to being a child. It's not just a 10-year-old child, it's actually a younger child than that. Where everything, you would see everything, you wouldn't divide it into all the different pieces of phenomena, would you? You wouldn't even know the names, you wouldn't even know how to do it. Anyway, that's what I've got to say. Thanks,
That's
Dean.
beautiful. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, great.
I've been watching The Mind the last week or so, and its track record for predicting stuff is 0 out of a million. It can never be right. It's always a really bad fortune teller, and it's all conceptual. Like, there can't be any truth in the mind anyway, because it's a concept in itself. But I like what Bob was talking about, the base, and it does, like, there's no separation, but it does feel like there's a base underlying everything, and like, everything can fall apart on top of that, and there's something that remains. Like, anything that's not real can fall apart, but there's a base that is still there and exists, if that makes sense to anyone. But it's sort of like, and I was just thinking, the mind is wrong about me. It's created a fictional me that doesn't exist either. So it's such an amazing, powerful function that it can come up with a dreamed person, and that's taken to be what I am. So, and my only other thing was just, like, it's, after looking at this for a while, it feels like it's actually ludicrous to think that somehow I'm this separate entity operating on my own steam, separate from life, like, when life is running through me and operating everything, and yet the mind's thinking I've got to do it my way and do it this way and that sort of thing, and thinks it's running the show, when, like, it's clear there's no separate, like, I can't be a separate entity from the life that's running everything, like, if you look around enough. Anyway.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That actually really corresponds with what Gilbert was saying here. The belief in investment of the belief in me has to resist what is being pointed out, or it falls apart. Can it really? The belief in me, can the imagined self do anything? Can the imagined self think or resist? Can it do absolutely anything? So that would make it real, but it isn't. It can't. If the resistance comes up, it is not the imagined self or ego that is doing the resistance. Imagined self or ego doesn't do anything. It's just a phantom. It's just a rainbow on the sky. It doesn't do. It's the resistance coming up. And the software, the piece of program which creates that imagined self, it also has a function to take credit for what is arising. So now we are watching the functioning, beautifully said, like what Adrian said, watching the arising and watching the functioning of the mind, taking credit, taking ownership, relating, creating, imagining the self. This is I, this is me. Brilliant. And you can be mind blown by that functioning and free from its implications. Because when you are viewing it in a way that you're just witnessing presence for those amazing functions to play in front of you, you're just amazed by it, rather than bound by it. And Gilbert says again, then, is it true? It is just another story of me. Is it just another story of me? Did the me ever really happen? Yeah, did it really happen? It seems to. It seems like there is a me, but is it really a me? Or is it just a sense of presence? Sense of presence that has been translated by the mind as this is my presence, this is me, the entity, the body, the mind, the woman. When those thoughts are gone, the presence remains. But now it doesn't have the story attached to it, and it's free. It especially doesn't have the story attached to, oh, I'm limited, there is something wrong with me, I'm in the wrong place, I'm not getting something, I need to understand more, I need to get clearer, or they have something that I don't. Those stories go away with the sense of being limitation, being limited I. The presence is unlimited, and that's what you are. And if the resistance arises in that presence, it doesn't even need the label. It's just the energy moving through the witnessing space. And it's not yours, it's not personal. I had a lovely conversation yesterday with someone who joins our Zoom groups, and he is really smart. He asks really good questions and very precise. So the question, and that question, I could hear the question arising in a group sometimes. Okay, so Bob, do you see everyone as yourself? Or do you see everyone like as one? Do you can't actually experience separation? So I laughed and said, well, you see how subtly and how quickly the mind seeps in and brings about a concept. Okay, do you see the same, or do you see oneness, or do you see separation? To have any idea of what is going on, to have an idea of separation, or to have an idea of oneness, or to have an idea of viewing yourself, you need that idea. Without the idea, when all the ideas rest or are moved away, and the priority is given to the direct experience of being, ideas are not that attractive anymore. Who cares? Okay, you can, of course, embrace some idea and enjoy the imagination and enjoy the expression of it, but what for? Trading unborn Buddha mind for a thought, for the idea. It's one of Bob's favorite quotes from Banki. Why exchange unborn Buddha mind for thought? Not that anyone has any choice in the matter, because there isn't anyone. So if the thought arises, and the thought is getting that energy, floating it with belief, that is also what is happening in the space of awareness or witnessing presence. I gotta get the phone.
Come back, come back.
Anyone would like to elaborate on that or say something different?
I might ask
Please.
a question.
Oh.
Yeah, thanks. It'll come to you in a minute.
Thanks. The mind is a tool, I suppose, or we say that often. But is it worth using the mind to look at the mind? Like, you may think that there are habitual ways of thinking that get in the way of just being, or these things come up. Is it worth using the mind to look at those things, or is that just getting caught up in concepts once again? Or look at those beliefs?
Did you do that, Bob?
Yeah?
What?
Do you want to come on?
What?
on what Cliff was saying. Cliff asked question.
You might not have heard it.
You're going to
Say
speak
it
up a little
again.
bit for both.
Yeah, no, it's just talking about, we often say the mind is a tool to be used. Is it worth using the mind to examine the mind in the way of looking at habitual concepts that come up and get in the mind and be in the way of just being with the beingness, or is that just relying on concepts once again to look at concepts?
I think we would use awareness to look at the mind. wouldn't
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's all awareness.
Yeah, that's a lovely question. Again, you see how distinctions come into the picture. Is it the mind using the mind, or is it the mind, or is it still being in the realm of concepts? Yes, when the question comes up, we are back in the realm of concepts. When the question relaxes, that's what's happening. If the looking's happening, investigating is happening, using concepts is happening, that's what's happening. And now, is there anyone using anyone or anyone using anything? No, it's just what's happening. This beautiful, actually, a demonstration how, and the same I was actually explaining to a man I was speaking with yesterday, see how the question comes into the mind, how the question creates the questioner. Now, there is some problem to be solved. There is a distinction happening. It is only happening within the sphere of concepts. In direct experience, it's just what's happening as it is. Unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. Andy, did you want to say something?
No.
Do you want to say?
Said it beautifully.
Hey everyone.
Hi.
Just this idea was coming up about ownership, and it's an interesting idea because it's at the root of sort of this world idea that we have, and ownership of this body, ownership of these clothes, ownership of this house, ownership of the car, ownership of land. It's like, there actually is no ownership of anything. It just ising right now. And so, it's just life, speaking with life, and it's a pretty crazy thing, isn't it? But it's also beautiful, amazing, and chaotic, and so, yeah, it's just this funny ownership. You look at the house, think we're in Bob's house, but really, if you really look at it, and you don't call it Bob's house, you don't claim any ownership of it. It's just appearing this way. It just is this way. And you go to look at the bodies around the room as well. Apply that same feeling or ideas. There's no ownership of this body. It just is. So who's talking? It's just happening just naturally and effortlessly. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Speaking of ownership, it's 40 years today since Sandra claimed me.
Oh, happy anniversary! Ours is going to be 2 days too.
And the funny thing is, it's just time, and just being like, it's just it is like a dream for all years, or having the kids, or it is just so fleeting. And in the sense of presence, it's just, I don't know, it's just a story, I guess.
Yes, lovely story.
A lovely story.
Yeah.
But there you go.
It's beautiful that we can share those stories, and good stories, lovely stories, call for celebration, and it is always life celebrating itself. And a story is somewhat an excuse, like a birthday story is an excuse for bringing that spirit of celebration, bringing it back. It's happy anniversary again. We're going to be having happy anniversary soon as well. And that is a lovely, lovely story. That's the loveliest story in the whole dream. And we have a couple of comments here. There is one from Vivek. He says, self is just there, no personality. And if personality arises in a self or in that space like awareness, well, it is just another modification of the same self. And Bill, presence is undeniably here now, requiring no belief and impossible to doubt. That is the main thing and the only thing we really know for certain. The rest is just a belief. And Vivek says, the question in Zoom shows it was asked considering existence of a personality. This is building up a story. Every question is building up a story. And we can just really love them. Why not? If they don't hurt. And Gilbert says the manifestation is expressed as duality. No phenomena can become the singularity. The seeing is happening spontaneously. Knowing is happening spontaneously. Where am I seeing from? Investigate the seeing by being the seeing. The investigator has an agenda. Seeing is beyond the seer and the seen. That's a beautiful and very important highlight. You know, if the investigation is happening in the way, and that's a beautiful way in which Bob usually collapses the duality of seer, seen, knower, known, thinker, thought. Just take a standpoint of that ing. I am the seeing. And then you see how the seer and the seen just arises within that field of seeing. You are the seeing. You are already that. You are already knowing, being. Jacinta, did you want to?
Yeah, I'll say something. You know, what confused me for a long time was always searching. But the more you know who you are, it's the knowing that's always pointing you to see that you're beyond, that the absolute. And for the new people here today, you're the absolute that got you here, not the entity.
Yes, absolutely. The knowing.
Yeah.
And Marty.
Another idea popped up. You know, Bob always says, you know, he can't tell us anything, and you know, there's nothing he can give you. There's also nothing I can share with you. There's also nothing you're going to hear from me that's going to give you anything. Mm-hmm. And it's in that you get nothing from us, and that's it. Because you know, there's nothing that anyone can give you, and that's what we're talking about.
Wonderful, wonderful. And there is nothing that you ever need, because you are already, like Jacinta was saying, you are already that. You are the absolute. You are a completeness, expressing through an us limited form, but in essence, you are completeness. But it's beautiful that you highlight, yes, there is nothing. If anyone come here to get something, well, forget about it.
But nothing is everything. Because out of nothing, we all came out of nothing, we returned to nothing. So in that state of nothing, all possibilities for everything arise. So for me, the way that I sort of get it is like, we are all separate in this room, but it's a matter of perspective. If we zoom out, we can't see ourselves as separate bodies. If we go further out and see the world as, a sphere or a disc, depending on your outlook, you just see a world. You don't see 8 billion people on it. Mm-hmm. If you zoom in on a drop of water, you start to see creatures and stuff swimming around the drop of water, but when you zoom out, you just see a drop of water. So we're both one and everything at the same time. That's what I think. I think it's both. But you don't want to get caught up in either one, because if you get caught up in like it's all one all the time, then you don't function very well as a human being in the practical level. And if you go too far into the ego, you don't function very well as a human being that way.
Yeah.
So you need to sort of work both in.
Yeah, beautiful. It is in fact a great illustration of the, how everything is a matter of perception.
Yeah.
But it's even further out, we just completely neglect perception. Anything perceivable or conceivable is just an appearance, and land in the direct experience in which even to say I'm everything or I'm nothing is already too many words. And that is a beauty, to actually find that place in which there is already complete relaxation in that field of not needing to know anything and not formulating or labeling any identity whatsoever. There is no one here who needs to be one or the other or both or neither, because the identity is just the arising, is a wave arising from the ocean and coming back to the ocean. There's no need for the identity. And in this sort of relaxed state of not knowing mind, just the being of the essence, identities arise as they need to. I need to be a wife, the identity arises, the body functions. I need to be the totality, okay, identity arises, temporary identity. And nothing, all those identities are just free to come and go. But the space-like awareness does not have and does not need to have any. And that's the ultimate freedom, when there is no urge to even find out who am I, because there is no one who wants to know.
That's what I say. When you get to the no thing, see the no thing of that no thing.
And Bill says, awareness is taken to be limited. It is all pervasive. Yeah, all pervasive. Everything that is field, like you said beautifully, is a field of potentiality. Everything streams out of that no thing, that potential. Did you want to say something, Dean?
No, everyone's...
Oh, come on. Come on.
I'm not sure. No, sorry.
Come.
See what comes.
What,
Open your mouth. Open your mouth and the Father will speak through you.
I'm not sure. I don't know. What's the topic today?
Okay, if you don't want to push,
no,
we have
said a lot of things.
We have Vivek saying, anyone who comes and interested in these meetings, lose everything. How wonderful! All the heavy weight is falling off your shoulders. Lose it out. Lose the suffering. What for? And then he says, all collected knowledge, ego, entity, attachment, etc., and get nothing. Pure potentiality. Enjoy getting nothing from these meetings. Thank you, Vivek. And Gilbert says, as Bob pointed out, you cannot work it out in the mind. Fantastic point. Yeah, quit trying. And he says, on the seesaw, we got up and down. The way out of the seesaw is through the fulcrum point, which has no actual substance. It's neither up nor down. Bob often talks about equilibrium. And Jay says, or nice not to be here.
I've got something to say.
Oh, wonderful.
Take it easy, Gilbert.
No, you got to give us more than that. Give us more than that.
No, that's all for now.
Perfect pointer. Take it easy. It actually is. You're right, Taz. Yeah. Take it easy. Relax. That's a fantastic pointer. Because life already has you. Life's already looking after the body. Life is already looking after making sure the next breath is going to be taken. The cells are going to be replaced. The hair are going to grow. Just relax and see how the life takes you where you need to be. How the life will provide the next thought when you need to have one. And give all credit to it. Take it easy and just give credit where credit's due.
Or to be okay if the hair starts falling out as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look at Bob's bald head. He's totally happy.
Weird ways. Goes in weird places.
You don't have that problem, Andy?
Eh?
You don't have that problem.
Oh, it's just brain cells dropping off now.
Mind cells.
And Gilbert says, thanks, Dean. So good to hear you say something at all. And Bill says, just for fun, take this imagined eye out of the picture. Remove it. Delete it. Ignore it. Everything is just beautifully so. Everything is just as it is. Clouds floating by, or perhaps a wild thunderstorm. Let it be just as it is. When the imagined I is in the picture, it persistently creates separation by evaluating and labeling, and seeking some sort of becoming, or non-existent liberation. And again, and just for fun, put the imagined and illusory I back into the picture. Place it off to the side. Let that illusory I be silent. Let it be still. Let it merge silently with the beauty of it all into the inescapable immediacy. Oh my God, Bill, this is so beautiful poetic. This is gorgeous. Thank you. I think, Bill, you should put some music into it and narrate it with a didgeridoo in the background or something. Dean.
And like when that happens, like what he's describing, like it's absolutely just amazing. Like it's just this isn't a message of just like, oh yeah, work a few things out in the mind and feel a bit happier, and no, it's quite stunningly like magnificent. Like there's nothing that you can ever like imagine, like just having no fear of death or the next moment or anything whatsoever. Like you're untouched, like it's because there's nothing to be touched. Like there's a space-like thing, and this is the experience. And in this experience, there's me's and no me's and ideas of going round and round and round. But really, the immediacy is like it's vibratingly like electricity, just vibrating patterns of just magnificence, of wonder, of God, of whatever you want to describe it. And I don't know, Bill's thing just sparked the whole thing, and Bob, it's just wonderful to be here and be in this room with everyone, and that's all I've got to say. Goodbye.
No, that's magnificent. Yes.
I don't really know what I'm going to say, but I think there can be a lot of beautiful non-duality speak and lingo and pointers, and it's all beautiful. But you know, at the end of the day, I think this is about. Like, it's nice to talk about what I am and all that sort of thing, but I can't experience what I am until I see through what I'm not and see through what's false, because it can't expand and blow up while that matrix of that parasite or whatever you want to call it is still trying to be taken to be what I am. Yeah. So it's beautiful to speak from the heart and all the oneness. That it's an intellectual understanding is completely different from a experiential and knowing. Yes. So, I mean, that's why I love Bob's stuff, because he just cuts through. It's just a fact-finding mission and investigation. It's not all esoterical all the time. It's just have a look really look at this, and not just float through and go, oh, maybe it'll all work out. Like actually an earnest investigation over time. And it's going to go in and out, and it's going to go up and down, and it's going to go fucking everywhere. Yes. You know? So
yes.
But eventually, the stuff will come up, and it'll be, if there's enough light coming through, it will start to burn up all that shit and see through it as false. So that's what's my point. It's just a practical investigation, I feel, at times. So thank you.
That doesn't happen. It's about some incense.
No, that is beautifully practical, and that is really important. Thanks. To actually really have a look, and you will see that even the earnestness to look and the that longing for the truth, life will provide it, life will facilitate it. And that rigorous investigation, like Bill was saying, just experimenting, removing the I, or putting it aside, or seeing or hearing the narrative, but really just as a subtitles, as a commentary, and just everything that is the way it is facilitated, is provided, and recognize and give credit to life, that life can provide that earnestness for the practicality of it, for the practical investigation. Am I my thoughts? Am I even the thought I am? When the thought I am is absent, I'm still here. When the thought I'm a woman, man, or person, or emotional being, when that one is absent, I'm still here. So could I possibly be something that comes and goes if I'm the witnessing presence for that which is coming and going? Could I be my emotional self, my sense of insecurity, my fear of rejection, if sometimes it is here and sometimes it is not? And I am prior to all those things arising and moving away. So could I possibly be any of the passing phenomena if I am a knowing of the passing phenomena? And discarding everything that I'm not. I can't be the thought, I can't be the image, I can't be the ugly image, I can't be the good image. Because if the image is absent, the presence is still there. And that's a really great reminder to just seriously look. And if you see, even on so-called intellectual level, if you see that this can't be true, who knows? That discipline may come back when the mind takes you for the ride again. And like Bob was saying sometimes, hey, I've seen through it again. There is no I, there is no self. It still feels like there is one, but let's look again. And if it isn't, the relaxation may just come back. Direct experience. Jürgen, do you want to say something? No?
I might say something on this theme. Yeah, I'll say something on this theme again. We say, the self appears in awareness, and yet that's part of the phenomena too. Like thought comes and goes, events come and go, and they all seem to, the right sort of thing in retrospect seems to happen as it needs to happen. Like, well, I've had a story as an alcoholic, and yet something brought me out of alcoholism, and I struggled with it in the mind for a long time, and then I see that I needed all of those experiences to get me to where I am today. Yet so those things had some sort of validity as they came up and were seen or not seen, and yet it is beyond the mind to examine it all and to make sense of it in a way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, it may feel like there is a mind watching the mind, or there is an I doing the investigation. But how could mind watch itself?
It's just awareness.
It's just awareness. It's just knowing.
Knowing. Yeah.
Within that sphere or space of knowing, different patterns of the thinking, comparing, judging, labeling, they are being known.
I remember this sense of a me dressed itself up as this like spiritual policeman and was watching me, watching all the different aspects of me, and that's all it was. It was just it was nothing, like nothing watching nothing, like watching and claiming that now I've found this out and I've discovered this, and it's like, oh no, I'm earnest.
Yes.
Now I've discovered. Oh no, I'm not earnest. Now I'm a liar. Now I'm a this, and it was just like endless until there's a realization that like Bob says, like clearly, the thought I think can't think. Like it's just there's no entity. It's an energy of just stuff floating around, and who's seeing it, who's observing it, what's observing it. It's unknowable, unfathomable, and brilliant. And there's I don't know, how can some sense of something claim anything like it's just beyond claiming? That's all. I don't know what.
Yeah, but that's.
The mind is really thick as a brick.
If you that yourself.
I said the mind, my mind, anyone's mind. That was all I had to say.
I was just thinking when Cliff was mentioning before that he was an alcoholic, is the use of an alcohol a sort of very sort of primitive way to try and turn the mind off?
Yes.
And maybe it doesn't work very well, but maybe you went through that, you came out the other side and go, well, there's a better way to do this. There's a better way to feel, to get rid of these self-conscious feelings, all these feelings that you might be trying to push down with alcohol. Yeah. And using the mind, because if I drink alcohol, my mind clearly feels different.
Yes.
I feel different about it. I don't really like it. I'd rather be clear in the mind now.
Me too.
And you've been through that with maybe the alcohol is a sort of a primitive way to try and deal with the self.
Yeah, I think that's right. But even more than that, I didn't choose to be an alcoholic, but that happened to this so-called person, and yet being there and going through that and coming out the other side brought me to questioning things that I would not have questioned otherwise. I don't think so.
Yes, it's kind of necessary part of the journey.
All part of that experiencing of the self in a way.
I think there's something from Carl Jung who's talked about alcoholics, like there was a low-level seeking for God through alcohol and drugs. There was coming from that place, but it's that's what it tried to use to arrive there, or something. I don't know, something like that.
I think that in a way, alcohol and drugs brought me to living in the moment. When I was, plastered or something, you didn't care about the past or the future or whatever. It was just experiencing the now in a way. And then as soon as the drug wears off, all that nightmare comes back.
It's a bit more instantaneous.
It's a dirty now.
Yeah, we have. Did you want to say something on the topic of alcohol? It's amazing how the substances are being used, and we can say to reach God or to look beyond myself, to escape myself, to find myself, to find God, to escape reality, to escape past and future, to find the now. All those things are basically summarized into one, not this. Reality as it is now, no good. So give me a substance, because that will mediate, sedate the suffering a little bit. Sure. And a substance can be alcohol, substance can be a behavior, a shopping, or overeating, or watching porn, or whatever, or gazing at social media. Anything but not this. Just escaping the angst of life as it is, whether it is the torture of the mind or whether it is a longing for the truth. And I have another couple of comments here, one from Bill. As soon as anything is denied or is defined or labeled, the subject and object appear. All labeling, without exception, results in fixation and duality. That's obvious. See that the world is not the thing. See that by defining stuff, limitation arises. Yet we go on labeling. Yet There is no escaping freedom. My goodness, isn't it gorgeous? And now the labeling as it happens and as it will, now it can be believed or it can be just noticed. And then as Dean was talking about creating an imaginary witness who is an imaginary police person who is kind of nodding everything. Well, that could also be part of the arising, the label, the witnessing, all of it part of the arising. And then the freedom, as Bill says, no escaping. There's no escaping. The freedom is there in that stepping back and relaxing into the natural state. Freedom is inevitable. And Kathy says, great. And Ram, as I was listening to Kat, I noticed there is a strange echo coming out of the audio. Sometimes the words are heard before I see her lips moving. Oh, wow. Sometimes they are heard afterwards. Sometimes they appear to come out as her lips are moving. Which is the present moment? Beautiful.
What's he drinking?
And Bradley, sipping the seeking syrup is just as intoxicating. Seeking syrup, yes, relaxing the search. Any search arising is just to be noticed. Again, this is another way of saying not this, something else, something better, something more. And inevitably the body-mind is wired to always look for more pleasure and less pain. Like Bob says, you like it, you want to keep it, you don't like it, you want to push it away. But the body-mind's behavior is not who you are. It is just what is happening within that witnessing presence. The seeking may be happening. It doesn't have to be personal. You don't have to attend to it. Let it be there in the background. Like Bill was saying, just push the I aside. Ignore it. Instead of ignoring the sense of presence, the heart of hearts.
No? Oh, okay.
Yes, Bob?
Oh.
Say something. I thought you want to say something.
Ah.
No, why not?
Your lips move, but I can't hear what you're saying.
I might try and say something. I really like the conversation around trying to use any substance to get out of the mind, and I was kind of already, I suppose, conjuring that up as the conversation was happening, and kind of reflecting on, this life of doing anything possible to just not be present and not be in this body and anything and everything. And so this message and whatever it was that brought me here to receive the truth of this, I can see more and more, like even when I sit here today, I'm just available, not as me as a concept, but just available to just be and really take in life in the way that at some point along the timeline I just needed to escape from. So I'm very thankful.
Beautiful. And even to actually have the narrative that I needed to drink to escape life, it's just a narrative. This is again on the greater scheme of things. This is life self-organizing, life self-medicating, life creating and adhering to survival strategies in the absence of any better ones or other ones. It's all life. It has never been a me who chose or not chose. Like Cliff was saying, I didn't choose to be an alcoholic. It is the life doing what it does, dancing itself. And if it has to go through the gutter to take you where you are today, like in Bob's case, well, you see the beauty and you appreciate the beauty of life when you zoom out and you see the bigger picture. But you may even appreciate it in a moment when you step out of the story and see this is what's happening. And then you watch the movie and you see the tragedy of war and you see people being abandoned, and that's also what's happening. And it is happening within the consciousness, so it is happening within you. And you can appreciate the pain experience when you actually connect empathetically with another face of you happening at this exact moment when it arises in a consciousness.
I suppose my talks with Bob, when I'd come and see him, I didn't maybe I was so far removed from reality that I couldn't actually see the gutter that I was living. And so just the talks with Bob really had me face what I needed to face, and I'm very thankful.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
In a way, all this talk of escaping the self or the mind, the thing about looking back on after I'd come here and seeing what I'd been creating, and talking about consciousness as I creating in the mind, was a really shitty version of the self that, you're pretty happy to let go of, really.
Yep, every version of a separate self is nothing comparing to the absolute, to the complete freedom. Even the most elaborated, wonderful image of self, if it's limited, if it's separated, if it's somewhat, even if it's kind of, in comparison, is fairly functional, is still limited, still not it. And we have here, Vivek says, alcohol to satsang to no satsang, all is to moving away from thoughts and mind and just be. And Ram, replying to his comment about what was happening when he was listening, I paid a 10% Sunday surcharge on my coffee this morning, Bob. That could be it. Thank you. And we have a couple of more minutes. Quiet minds.
Being ready with the mind. Zap.
Perfectly at ease.
Everything in our society. I couldn't take it anymore. Because the message that we're hearing today is not the main message that we hear, out there. So, since we live in a consumer society, and we've got to work and raise families and consume, this message is almost, in many ways, an opposite message to the way we have to sort of kind of live. And of course we're told if this is just so non-mainstream, this message. And that's probably the issue, is that some people just never hear this message, and if they do, they don't really have the capacity to understand the message the first time.
I mean, until you're in enough pain, like I've been in pain, or we've all been in pain here, you're not going to investigate anything, are you? You're not going to question anything. So pain is actually the biggest gift that we can give ourselves.
Just have to get tired of the hamster wheel.
I got this quote. Can I read it out? It's got all. I just saw it yesterday. All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. And third, it is accepted as being self-evident.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and that can happen on a personal level too. When you first hear it, not just on a sort of a broad public scale, but on a personal level, you might hear something and just go, "That's just," you just haven't got the capacity to understand it. I've been into this sort of thought sort of a long time now, but it's taken 30 years to mature, and to sometimes you move away from thinking like this as well, and go into those avenues of thinking like sort of how society wants you to think, you know, sort of head down, bum up work, and you know, you get really caught up with the non-spiritual aspects of life, and you can really believe it's real. But these seeds that you plant, you know, and you can water the seeds, and they can grow. They can really benefit you and make your life infinitely better. Until suddenly you're probably not a good citizen anymore because you're getting pleasure out of the more simple things in life, rather than a purely materialistic sort of way of life. Anyway, that's happened a little bit for me. I've never been really good at that sort of part of life because I've always needed a bit of time to dream and time alone and space and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it does take time to take those ideas on board, unless you're just spiritually gifted like an outlier and you just sort of hear those ideas and straight away can really absorb them and let them grow. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
That's it.
Oh, I have one more comment. Been trying to share this message with my very religious cousin. It's entertaining.
Who was it?
Thank you, MJ. That was MJ. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bob. Thanks, Kat. Thanks, everyone.